Okay, good morning, students. Here I am with you in IT class. So, today I will tell you about the effective communication and the communication barriers. In last session, we have done the different types of feedbacks. Okay, so today we will see what is effective communication. Effective communication means what? That means it can happen if we follow the basic principles. That means the communication between the speaker and the listener, when it will be in understanding uh, position, then that will be effective communication. Okay, so for the effective communication we should follow for few basic principles of professional communication skills. So, in previous class, in class 9, also you have seen that 7 C's of communication. I think, do you remember that? So, that 7 C's of effective communication. So, again, we will revise that. So, first one is clear, concise, then conversational, correct, coherent, complete, and courteous. Okay, so clear means what? Clear means be clear what you want to say. Okay, concise means be specific. Don't waste your time. What do you want to say? You just say that, and what you want to get the information, take that information. So this is concise. In the concise way, use a simple and easy words and phrases. Okay, next one is conversational. Conversational means try to converse to involve the uh, other person. Don't lecture or don't whine, and don't get angry or over emotional. It's not should be. It should not be. Next is correct. Correct means use correct and correct spellings, language, and grammar. That is correct. Coherent. Coherent means your words should make sense and should be related to main topic. Okay, that is coherent. Next one is complete. Complete means message should be your message should be complete. It should it should be means there should be all needed information to complete any work or any complete task. Okay, so that is complete. Next is courteous. Courteous means be respectful, friendly, and honest when you communicate with other person. Okay, so these things, when you are communicating with the person, then these things you should remember, then your communication will be effective. Because if the communication is not effective, that means those are communication barriers. Due to the communication barrier, your communication should not be effective. Okay, so communication barriers create misunderstandings and misinterpretation of messages. And to communicate successfully, you must know that what barriers to communication exist and ensure that they do not obstruct your communication. Okay, so barriers means obstacle, or you can say hurdles between the speaker and the listener. So you must make efforts to navigate around these roadblocks. Okay, so communication barrier is thus anything that prevents us from receiving and understanding the messages others use to convey their information, ideas, and thoughts. So communication between two individuals should be simple. Remember that there are differences between talking and communicating. There is a difference. When we communicate, we are successful in getting our point, across to the person we are talking to. Okay, so there are different types of communication barriers. First one is physical barrier. Like physical barriers means it separate people from each other and mark territories. These barriers can often be seen in the workplace when where offices and closed doors stop communication. Okay, physical barriers can stop you from being comfortable communicating with a person whom you don't come face to face with often. So this one is physical barrier. Next one is language barrier. Language barrier means suppose you don't know others language, when speaker and the listener both cannot understand each other's language, then that will be language barrier. Okay, so not using words another can understand will certainly stop your communication, your message from being conveyed. So this not applies to actual language, but also expressions, format used, buzzwords, and other region jargon. Okay. So if one is not familiar with your language, then misinterpretation will occur. So if suppose it is also possible that your language, both language are same, but they don't know the meanings what you want to say, that may be. So that is also a communication barrier. Now, for example, in Facebook, maximum of you I have seen that lol word is used. Lol means what? Actually, initially it is used as lots of love. Okay, but now changed to laugh out loud. So when one person is saying lol in communication, then the second person can understand or interpret the meaning in any way want, any way they want. Okay, or from their understanding. So that should be concised. Next is gender barrier. That one, first one we have seen physical barrier, then language barrier, and now gender barrier. Gender barriers means variation exists among masculine and feminine styles of communication. There are distinct difference between the speech pattern in a man and a woman. Okay, a woman speaks near about 22 to 25,000 words a day, whereas a man speaks 7,000 to 10,000. Okay, 7,000 to 10,000 words in a day. So you can understand. So while women often emphasize politeness, empathy, and rapport building, and whereas male communication is often more direct. This means that a man talks in a linear, logical, and compartmentalized way. Features of left brain thinking, whereas a woman talks more freely, mixing logic and emotions. Features of both sides, left and right brain. Okay. So mixing these two styles without awareness could become a barrier. Understand? So that is gender barrier. Next one is attitudinal barrier. That is what? As those behaviors or perceptions that are devised in nature, the ones that can lead to nagging doubt, okay, silent disagreement, or even over conflict, they all interfere with the undermine communication. These are barriers that distance one from others. Okay, so these are visible through withdrawal, meanings, rituals, uh, rituals which keep one devoid of real contact, superficial activities, and more. Okay. Now, next one is perceptual barrier. Perceptual barrier means what? That is different world views can create misunderstanding. Okay, people tend to interpret messages from their own point of view or ideologies uh, without thinking. One might only view a message from his or her own mindset rather than looking at it from another viewpoint. Okay, so this problem with communicating with others is that we all see the world differently. All of us point of views are different. So you might ask someone an innocent questions based on a previous experience, but it is quite likely for them to perceive it other suspicious. Okay, so these are the different types of attitudinal barriers and perceptual barrier. Okay, so attitudinal barriers, these are the barriers that distance one from others. These are visible through withdrawal, meaningless rituals that one devoid of real contact, superficial activities, and more. In this way, this type of activities are attitudinal barrier. Next one is cultural barrier, where the culture is different. Okay, like ethnic, religious, and social differences can often create a barrier, misunderstandings when trying to communicate. Okay, so these differences can also affect one's perception and create confusion in getting a message. So that is a barrier, cultural barrier. Next one is emotional barrier. Emotional barrier means what? If one is consumed with emotion, like he will have difficulty in understanding no what is communicated. Hostility, like anger, fear, then and other emotions, like other emotions. So this make it hard to hear outside one's own self. So the roots of our emotional mistrust of others lie in our childhood and infancy, when we were taught to be careful about what we said to others. Okay, we must have been often warned, mind your P's and Q's. Don't speak until you are spoken to. So these things from the childhood we do that. Now, as a result, many people hold back from communicating their thoughts and feelings to others, while some caution may be wise in certain relationships. Excessive fear of what others might think of us can stunt our development as effective communicators. Okay, so these things we have to ignore. So overcoming these barriers to communication is not easy task. You need awareness and willingness to adapt and try to form meaningful relationships. But if you begin to focus on how these communication barriers are affecting your everyday conversation, you will be well on your way to becoming an effective communicator. Okay, so these are the different type of barriers that we have taught today. We have seen that. So that's all for today. You read this chapter thoroughly, and after completing this chapter I will tell you some practical questions which you will write down in a practical file. Okay, so after completing this chapter. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you.